you may recall the strange affair of the Phantom of the Opera, a mystery never fully explained. Perhaps we can frighten away the ghost of so many years ago with a little illumination. Gentlemen.
Howdy, howdy, welcome to part 2 of my staunch defense of the work of Joel Schumacher. Now, I already did my introduction to this in part 1, so let's just launch straight into it, shall we? Then he did A Time to Kill, which was sort of his follow-up to The Client, because it was, again, based on a John Grisham novel. I've only recently watched A Time to Kill, and I was a bit hesitant about it, because it is about a black man, played by Samuel L. Jackson, whose daughter is raped and almost killed by two redneck men, who then killed in turn by Samuel L. Jackson, and he's brought into court, and Matthew McConaughey in an early role is his lawyer who represents him. It's in a difficult place because I, on the whole, am against capital punishment and the death sentence. I don't think it is up to an individual to decide whether a person can live or die. But I have to admit, in the first 10 minutes of the movie, when this horrific crime, which isn't shown in its entirety, but it's shown enough, takes place. And this is really a love letter to good filmmaking and a compliment to Mr. Joel Schumacher. I was instantly put in the mindset that Samuel L. Jackson was justified in his decision. And I think that's the thing. It's one thing to be objective outside of these scenarios. It's another thing to be involved in it and to be emotionally involved. And that was a very controversial film. And I'm not going to say that it doesn't deserve to be controversial. And I'm not necessarily going to defend it. I think it was a very well-made movie with some brilliant performances from McConaughey, Jackson, Bullock, Sutherland. I thought it was a very good movie that sought to bring to the public eye the plight and injustices that black people face in America and in the world. And for that, I absolutely applaud it, and I applaud Joel Schumacher.
Do you think Carl Lee shooting you was intentional?
No, sir. It was an accident.
Do you think he should be punished for shooting you?
No, sir. I hold no ill will toward the man. He did what I would have done.
What do you mean by that, Deputy Looney?
I mean, I don't blame him for what he did. Those boys raped his little girl.
Then he did a film called Flawless. It's a drama set in the real world about Robert De Niro, who's a decorated hero cop who also happens to be greatly homophobic, suffers a stroke and is confined to his house. And as a form of therapy, he decides, or is told, I can't remember, to go over to his neighbor's house, who's a drag queen and a homosexual played by the late great Philip Seymour Hoffman, to get singing lessons. Again, it has some very confronting scenes. It can be very difficult to watch for its depiction of homophobia and violence related to homophobia. But again, it's a film about understanding and about seemingly opposing societal figures who come together and see their world from each other's point of view and reach a mutual understanding. So ultimately, it's a story about peace and love, and a lot of the straight dramas and even some of the more fantastical stuff that Joel Schumacher directed were about those things.
Well, I don't like the term drag queen, because most drag queens just want to, parade around looking flawless, and if they sing, they lip sync to records. And I'm a singer, and I'm a female impressionist. I'm an artist,
Well, okay. You're a fucking drag queen.
Let me savor those lovely words for a moment. All right, what are you, channeling Jesse Helms?
Then he did another controversial film, but a film that was controversial for a different reason. The Phantom of the Opera, based on the musical by Andrew Lloyd Webber. Now, this is a very polarizing film. It's really a love it or hate it type of movie. The people who love it for very different reasons, and the people who hate it for very different reasons. reasons. There are some people who hate it from the get-go because they're not a fan of Andrew Lloyd Webber or of musicals in general. It's obviously not a film for them, so we're going to leave them aside. There's another group of people who hate it because they do love the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical. The thing about musicals or stage plays or things that have multiple versions with different performers and stuff like that is there'll be a single version that a single person watches and goes, that was brilliant. To me, yada yada is the only yada yada, like Batman. And any other version or interpretation that runs contrary to the version that they saw is not as good or even bad in comparison to that. I'm not going to say that it was a perfect depiction of the Phantom of the Opera stage play. No. It was a different interpretation, deliberately so. I would say I'm a bit biased because I saw the movie version before I saw any of the on-stage performances. And I think that's key. Because when I think of the Phantom of the Opera, I think of Gerard Butler as the Phantom, Emmy Rossum as Christine, Patrick Wilson as Raoul. Joel Schumacher and Andrew Lloyd Webber were close friends for a long time, and the Phantom of the Opera was in development hell for a long time as a film, really ever since it first opened on the stage. And I think there was no one who was better suited to do a Phantom of the Opera film than Joel Schumacher. It has that bright colorfulness, it has that flamboyancy, it has that sexuality, and it has that darkness. He was the perfect fit, and I think he made a brilliant movie. Leaving aside the cast, people particularly are disparaging of Gerard Butler as the Phantom. Some people say he was too sexy. Some people say he didn't have any singing experience, so he didn't have the range that most Phantoms on stage do. But I think he captured the emotional core of the Phantom. He made that character feel real, and the emotion feels real to me. There are moments in that film that bring me close to tears, genuinely. Obviously, stage musicals and film musicals are different beasts in a variety of ways. Personally, and maybe it's just because I'm a huge film fanatic and I haven't been to the theater all that much, I prefer film to theater because film allows you to get up close and personal with the characters and see the subtleties of emotion on their face that feels more real and more relatable. No, Gerard Butler wasn't the best singer in the world, but he was a good singer. His voice sounded amazing. He didn't hit every low note and high note, and his voice broke every now and then, but I saw a recent interview and he explained that that was a part of it. He wanted the emotion to come through in the singing, and yes, I love that. I want to see more of that because it gives the words that they're singing more emotional resonance. They mumble through it, they can hold back tears, they can choke on it, they trail off in the singing. Another key difference between musicals and film, for both examples, there needs to be a marriage between the visuals and the music. And on stage, that is usually done through a combination of lighting and the choreography, the dancing. On film, that can be difficult to get across. There used to be a time when it was all wide shots and the dancing was just in the film anyway. You know, like Oliver, consider yourself. But that's become a different thing in the modern era when close-ups are more prominent than wide shots. Having revisited the Phantom of the Opera, the dancing and the choreography is reinterpreted in the cinematography, in the way that it's edited. The camera is dancing. The image that you see is dancing. I would even hesitate, but potentially go as far as to say it's his masterpiece. It was a perfect marriage between filmmaker and subject matter.
Why so silent, good monsieur? Did you think that I had left you for good?
You know, I know this video is just going to be a drop in the ocean of YouTube. It's probably not going to change at all the public perception of the late, great Joel Schumacher. But I hope for the people who see it, it allows them to look at his work and him in a different light. I think he was a director who had a wonderful and unique artistic vision, a fresh perspective on larger-than-life stories, and a need and a want to say something very important about the injustices of the world that he lives in. And I hope that is ultimately his epitaph, and not Joel Schumacher, the man who put nipples on the batsuit. Anyway, that's all we got for this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you like, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, leave a comment, spread some love for Joel and his work. Keep watching movies, and I'll see you when I see you.